Welcome to Coffee Talk. Today is Hanukkah, and the conversation today is about the miracle of Jewish survival. What an appropriate topic for Hanukkah. We say in the Al Nisim, special prayer that we add during the time of Hanukkah, that God gave the wicked into the hands of the righteous, and the weak, the mighty in the hands of the weak. We talk about an army that seems to be unbeatable. The Greeks were these massive, chiseled, Herculean men who were trained from birth to go to war and to battle and to fight. And grab a sheet right over there. And and the Jews were the people that stood up to fight against this group of people. Were the Kohanim, the priests, the nerds, the guys who were sitting there and praying and offering sacrifices. Certainly not the people that you would expect to win a battle against the most prominent, powerful, well-trained army on planet Earth at the time. There's a promise that the Torah makes, which is what we're going to see inside. But I want you to know that this idea of Jewish survival is not something that the rabbi noticed and is coming to talk to you about. There are other people throughout history that have paid attention to the uniqueness of your story, our story. And what I did was, the first part of this pamphlet that you have here in front of you, this worksheet or this source sheet, it has a bunch of sources from some prominent figures throughout history that you'll be familiar with that said things about the Jewish people that are amazing and you've never heard of it before. So let's just go through them together first. So the first one is a quote by Mark Twain. And he wrote a famous essay called Concerning the Jews, which later he described as his gem in the ocean. And he concluded with the following passage. He says, "The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greeks, the Roman, followed and made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other people have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burned out, and they sit in twilight now, or have vanished. The Jews saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal, but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?" Powerful. You've heard of this before, and it's a great question. Like, what is the secret of our people? Like, how do we keep going? There was a famous article in 2000, the year 2000, New York Times did a mock article for the year 2100. What would we see on the front page of New York Times in 100 years from now? And interestingly, you saw on the bottom right corner of that front page, Shabbos candlelighting times. That they know for a fact that there will be Jews around keeping a Shabbat with the Shabbat candle times there on the bottom of that front page, paper in 100 years from now. Like, how could they be that sure, that certain, that they're going to be Yidden, as we say, the Yehudim, in 100 years from now, keeping a Shabbat? When the numbers look so terrible. There was a recent Pew study that came out that does a lot of surveying on the Jewish community, and the assimilation rate in America has risen tremendously in the last 20 years. It used to be America was safer than Europe. The assimilation rate in Europe is at 90%. In America, for the longest time, it was around 52%, and we're inching into 73% right now. 73% of American Jews are assimilating out of their Jewish heritage and culture. Right?
Today?
2021. The number today, currently, is 73%.
Which means that non-observants got to be more.
Well, yeah. There's out of the 5 million Jews living in the United States of America, less than 10% are Orthodox. And everyone in this room will be considered Orthodox, regardless of what you think you're doing or not doing. Okay? Because the fact that you're here coming to a class, it already puts you into a different category of a Jew than the people that are not here in a class. When I walk through the Upper East Side on a typical day, like in the afternoon, most of the people that I'm bumping into are Jewish. That's just the way it is. What they're involved in, what they're affiliated with, I don't know. But most of the people, you're walking around here, most of the people, like almost 80% of the people you're bumping into are Jews. And they're not in the synagogue should be packed. There should be no room in the synagogue. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So, what's that? Yeah. So good. So let's have that in mind, because it's important to have that in mind. Let's see what Pascal said, the famous mathematician, philosopher. He says, "This people are not eminent solely by their antiquity, but are also singular by their duration, which has always continued from the origin till now. For whereas the nations of Greece and Italy, the Lacedaemon of Athens, the Rome, the others who came long after, have long since perished, these ever remain. And in spite of the endeavors of many powerful kings who have 100 times tried to destroy them, as the historians testify, and as it is easy to conjecture from the natural order of things during so long a space of years, they have nevertheless been preserved, and this preservation has been foretold. And extending from their earliest times to the latest, their history comprehends in all durations of all histories, which is preceded by a long time." Meaning, like, how are these people still here? There's so much adversity, so many things that were thrown at the Jewish people to slow them down, to get in the way, to take away their right. We live in such amazing times. You were alive 400 years ago, 500 years ago. Okay, anywhere in the world, you were a second-class citizen. You had rights that were, forget about being a man and a woman or whatever it is, but you were a Jew. It was like the lowest thing on planet Earth you could possibly want to be. You were in Europe, you couldn't own land. In Muslim countries, there was limitations to how much property you could have, how high you could build your home. There was a certain level of enforced, humility or humiliation that was part of the culture and society. We didn't have the rights. You didn't walk around like, oh, I'm a Jew. I was proud. I'm a Jew and I'm proud. And I'll sing it out loud. That did not happen, 400 years ago, 200 years ago, 100 years ago. You were in the ghetto. Yeah.
That environment that creates more observant Jews and more cohesiveness in the community because we don't need them.
No, I think the opposite. I think that many Jews saw that as a reason to escape. It's interesting because you think assimilation is a new thing. Assimilation has always been around. The Jews that the whole story of Hanukkah begins with an assimilated Jew who was a Hellenist, who was a Jewish person, mother, father, okay, and he comes to Matilde on behalf of Antiochus saying, new rules by the king, and you need to pay taxes, and we're setting up an altar of idol worship in the middle of Modin in your town. And Matilde says, this is not happening, takes out a spear, kills the guy. Okay, his children kill all the guards, and that starts the civil war against this, foreign power that's ruling Israel. But they were Jews fighting Jews at the beginning, like most things in Jewish history. It wasn't just Jews were assimilating throughout history. I mean, Jews were assimilating in Greek culture and Roman cultures. When the Greeks started their whole Hellenistic pursuit of bringing acculturation to the Jews in the Middle East, right? The people that were involved in the games, the first games for the Olympics, were Kohanim, priests. Yeah, they were Jews very much, and we love showing off and showing what we can do, and we want to compete and show that we're better, and that starts the process. And that was the beginning of the assimilation process. The first few verses of Genesis use 4 different words to describe some type of a darkness, right? There's chaos, right? There's tehom, there's choshech, and what are the 4 again? It's tohu, right? Tehom and choshech are the 4 languages used to describe some sort of darkness or desolation. And the prophets say that each one of these words describe a different one of the 4 exiles. And the exile that is tied to Choshech was Yavan, was Greek. And the question is why? Why were the Greeks tied into Choshech, darkness, when they were all about enlightenment? Let's share ideas, let's share our wisdom, let's share philosophy, we'll share our architectural power, we know how to do all these beautiful buildings and whatnot. The column, the Roman column, the Corinthian column, the Doric column, all these beautiful things they've created, art, game, sport, these were amazing gifts to the world. Why was it considered a time of Choshech? And the reason why it's called Choshech is because the Greek culture represented a chitzoni, an external type of wisdom, a superficial kind of wisdom. There is wisdom in those things and beauty, but not at the expense of losing the core pnimiyut, the inner type of wisdom, which was lost as a result. It created this fictitious belief that what they have is called wisdom, when there's something much deeper in wisdom that you don't get from external things. And a great example of this is relationships. It's the year 2021, right? America is an extension of Greek-Roman culture, which is an extension of this chitzoni, external type of wisdom. We have 1,000 years of Sigmund Freud and all of his psychological analysis. We have years of scientific method. We should be happier people than ever before in history. The relationship should be much better today. Like marital bliss should be much higher than it has ever been, right? People should be in much more wholesome relationships. We're not seeing that at all. The question is why? With all the wisdom that we have, why aren't we seeing that? And the answer is that most of the wisdom we have is information. It's not the application of wisdom. Application of information is wisdom. That's what we want. We don't have that today. And we're satisfied with all this data. The data is useless until you know how to apply the data. This was Greek. Greek brought the choshech into a world where the Beit HaMikdash was in existence, but it created this fictitious belief that they had something that was substantial, that was measurable and tangible, and that's truth, when in fact it's not. There is beauty there, and there's value there, but that's not the ikar. That's not the main function of wisdom and beauty and architecture. There's other things that are there as well. So you have also Nikolai Berdyaev. He wrote a book called The Meaning of History. He says the Jews have played an all-important role in history. Their destiny is too imbued with the metaphysical to be explained either in material or positive historical terms. Its survival is mysterious and wonderful phenomenon, demonstrating that the life of his people is governed by special predetermination, transcending the process of adaptation. Meaning, this is not an evolutionary thing. This is, we can't explain this. The survival of the Jews, their resistance to destruction, their endurance under absolute peculiar conditions, and the fateful role played by them in history, all point to the particular mysterious foundation of their destiny. I mean, look at Leo Tolstoy, the famous writer. What is a Jew? He wrote this in the book called The Final Resolution, page 189. What is the Jew? Imagine him with his Russian accent. What kind of unique creature is this whom all the rulers of the nations of the world have disgraced and crushed and expelled and destroyed, persecuted, burnt, and drowned, and who, despite their anger and their fury, continues to live and to flourish? What is this Jew whom they have never succeeded in enticing with all the enticements of the world, whose oppressors and persecutors only suggest that they deny and disown his religion and cast aside the faithfulness of his ancestors? The Jew is the symbol of eternity. He is the one who for so long had guarded the prophetic message that transmitted to all mankind. A people such as this can never disappear. The Jew is eternal. He is the embodiment of eternity. Leo Tolstoy, by the way, was no friend of the Jews. Okay, but he even recognized this. Winston Churchill. Some people like Jews and some do not. But no thoughtful man can doubt the fact that they are beyond all question the most formidable and most remarkable race that has ever appeared in the world. I don't care what you say. Right? When your ancestors were involved in barbarism and idolatry and pillaging and conquering and questing and killing, my ancestors were singing psalms in the Temple of Solomon. That's where you come from. People that spoke about equality and peace, responsibility to the world, tikkun olam. That's where you come from. This is ancient. We're talking about ancient, not modern. Modern set of values that everyone has today, that we take for granted. We're talking about ancient people that are talking about the same moral principles that we as modern Jews live with. If you were to go in a time machine, and I say this to anybody who listens to this, whoever you are, Jewish or not, okay? You go into a time machine with your current set of values, and you are trying to find an ancient culture whose values are in sync with your own, the only place that you will find in history is Israel. You won't find any other place. Is there an extra source sheet? Pass one to Robin, please. Yeah, go for it.
You've been saying that in a way, we've been, the Jewish people have had this effect of Tikkun Olam, because why did these other nations? You're saying today now these are values that we see. So is something we can credit because we have?
Oh, I believe so, 100%. There's a great book that you should all read called The Hebrew Republic. I forget the name of the author right now. It's not a long book. It's 150 pages of the book, and then like another 150 pages of source material, footnotes and whatnot. And basically the author is a professor at Harvard. I just don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. He describes that the founding forefathers of the United States of America, right? Washington, and Adams, and Jefferson, Company, Hamilton, were all very much, Benjamin Franklin, all students of Judaism. And that so much of the principles that they used to build this country and its foundations were based on Jewish concepts from the Talmud, more so than in the Christian Bible. And he shows it straight out in the Declaration and so on and so forth, where the verbiage comes from the Torah and the Jewish sources and not Christian sources. As a matter of fact, he says that at some point there was a consideration of calling this country New Israel. And there was even a conversation that the main language of this country should be Hebrew. Do you know that? That was on the table? That America, this is like the foundation. It's not an accident that this country was built by people who had very much a strong affinity for Judaism and Jewish principles. Not an accident that the major institutions, the Ivy League universities, if you look at the seal of their schools, all have Hebrew letters on them. God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Shakai, and whatnot. Look at it. Go to Harvard, go to Yale. You'll see in the seal are Hebrew letters in there. Not an accident. Okay, the intellectual individuals that were building and forming the foundation of this country saw something unique about Judaism. The fact that we speak about this idea that all men were created equal under God, or B'Tselem Elokim Bara, that God creates each man in the image of God. That's a Jewish concept. No one speaks about that. There's no other religion that speaks about that every person, whether he's Jewish or not, has a chelek, has a portion, olam haba, in a world to come. No other religion has that. Every other religion, if you don't convert into their faith, then you're going to damn in hell. Why do we do that? Because Judaism is not a religion in the classical sense. Judaism is a system for development, for greatness. Remember, I always say this, it's not designed for losers. It's designed for peak performers that want to live a life of excellence. And anyone who is striving for excellence, who is looking for this stuff, will find it in Jewish literature, more than anywhere else. So yeah, if you want to find the group of people that have changed the world, who have impacted society, have impacted values and morality, it's us, our people. Yeah, I'm proud of it. Okay, fine. So Rabbi Mati Berger and Rabbi Usher Resnick were both my teachers, and a lot of the ideas come from this lecture they give called the 7 Wonders of Jewish History. You can find the totality of it on Aish.com. So this is a quote from there. The fact that we are an eternal nation becomes even more amazing when we consider that the Jews don't even possess the basic characteristics that define a nation: land, language, and history. Right? The Jews don't have any of that. We're in exile for the last 2,000 years. We have no land. We're exiled from land. You had Jews living in Syria, in Uzbekistan, in Egypt, in Iran, in Spain, in France, in Italy, and they all spoke different languages, right? So there's no common language. We shared somewhat of a common history, but we're still different because they lived in all these different places. Right? Did the Jewish people have a land in common? Well, for 2,000 years, the vast majority of the Jewish people never set foot in the land of Israel. All other nations of the world had a land in common that they settled and lived in, but for the majority of our history, the Jews never had a land to call their own. Israel was a common dream, yes, but no common land. Well, how many of you speak Hebrew? Well, how many of you speak it well? For the vast majority of our history, the Jews did not speak the language. Most Jews did not speak that; they spoke other languages. Sure, the Torah portions were read aloud in Hebrew in shul and the synagogue, but the spoken language were Aramaic, Ladino, Yiddish, French, English, and many others. How about common history? Well, you don't have to go pretty far back in time to get one, right? For the last several centuries, Jews have been scattered across the globe. We certainly don't have a history in common. So not only are the Jewish people poor candidates for being an eternal nation, without a common land, language, and history, we hardly are candidates to be any kind of nation at all. It's like a weird thing. Right? So what's the binding agent? that pulls us all together. Where does that come from? We're barely even a nation, but we're considered a nation, right? Look at Houston Smith. He wrote a book called The Religions of Man, page 292. And this is source number 7. On page, if you're following with me in the source sheet, it's page number 3. We're in source number 7. We have already quoted the judgment of the sociologist that by every sociological law, the Jew should have perished long ago. To which we may now add that of a noted philosopher, Nicholas Berdyaev. We said the continued existence of the Jewry down to the centuries is rationally inexplicable. If what these facts and judgments attest to is true, and Jewish history and achievement have been atypical, there are two possibilities. Either the credit belongs to the Jews themselves, or it belongs to God. Given this alternative, Jews instinctively turn their credit Godward. One of the striking features of this exceptional people has been their refusal to see anything exceptional in themselves as people. The only alternative was that it had come from God's special grace. Thus, it is that a concept which looks at first to have been prompted by national arrogance, the chosen people, turns out to be the humblest interpretation of the facts that they saw coming their way. Meaning, what do we? It's not us. It's all God. We're not doing anything, right? You see this a little bit in this week's Parsha with Yosef, when he meets Paro for the first time, and Paro says, "I heard you're the dream interpreter." Imagine the scenario. He's in jail, okay, comes out of jail, they're shaving him, they're cleaning him up, and they're bringing him before the most powerful man on planet Earth, Paro. Paro says, "Listen, I have these dreams that are haunting me." He's like, "Can you interpret them?" He says, "Bil Adai." It's not really me, it's God. Can you imagine you go to this guy and say, "You're a surgeon?" "Nah, it's not real. I'm not a really good surgeon. It's not me, it's God." Who do you mean? Who does that? But there's a recognition and understanding that ultimately there's something guiding us in this direction that we're in. And everything that we have, for good, the bad, and the ugly, okay, all come from a source guiding us. Remember, the only thing we can do in life is choose how we are going to respond in the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Our parents, our grandparents knew this more than anyone else. Jews in the Holocaust, they couldn't control the circumstance they were in. Some people were able to run away. Some people stood up and fought. Some people said, I'm saying Shema Yisrael, walking into a gas chamber. They were singing, I'm proud to be Jewish. They did things that defied all human logic. There's a certain kind of pride and understanding that everything that happens is coming from a greater source, and they weren't afraid of death. They weren't afraid of the pain, because they believe in this concept of justice, that there will always be justice at the end. Okay, so it makes no sense that we're here, but yet here we are having the conversation. Against all odds, there should be no Jews. Jews have been ridiculed, we've been minimized, we've been pushed to the side, we've been abused more than any other people on planet Earth. I was showing Maurice this morning, there's this propaganda going around right now that's saying how all the Jews that are running the CDC and that the Pfizer and all these companies are being run by Jews, and so much of what's happening right now in the world is this Jewish conspiracy to vaccinate the world. What's the conspiracy exactly? I'm not sure, but there's a Jewish agenda, and this is the conspiracy that's floating around. And there's a website called shabbosgoy.com. And it's about these non-Jews who see Jews as the enemy, and they're perpetuating this idea that Jews have a plan, and this is all part of the protocols of the Elder of Zion, and we're here. So we're lucky that we don't live in a society yet that sees Jews as a threat. But look back at the Dreyfus affair, happened in France not too long ago. Google it if you know what I'm talking about. Look what happened. You had a general who's totally dedicated to the French and the French army, was accused of having dual loyalties, right? You have it in this country. You had Ilan Omar say the same thing, that Jews can't be trusted, dual loyalties. How do we know where you really stand? All we want to do is live in peace. And what they don't realize is that there's been more assimilation happening in America over the last 400 years than there has been in any other country in world history. Even though assimilation has happened before, there were tremendous assimilation happening in Europe for Jews who just wanted to convert to Christianity so they could just belong. Jews in this country converted into other faiths so they could get into the the club, or get into a hospital. There were Jews. There were hospitals. Jews couldn't get. The reason why we started hospitals is because we couldn't get jobs. No one would hire us as doctors. It's not an accident that all the hospitals today have Mount Sinai and this and that, all Jewish names on them, and all the people that built the buildings were Jews, because Jews weren't getting the same kind of medical treatment 100 years ago in this country, right? We started our own Ys and JCCs because we couldn't get into the non-Jewish clubs, right? All right, let's take a step back and let's look back at our sources. Okay, those were the Goyim. These are the nations of the world telling us about what they saw about Jews, and asking the question, why are we here? But let's go back to an earlier source. Remember, the Torah was given to the Jewish people 3,300 years ago. The Torah is 3,300 years old. It's old. Okay, Christianity is 2,000 years old.
They use our Bible.
I know. Think about it. Christianity is 2,000 years old. Islam, 1,600 years old. It's a baby. Okay, Judaism is Torah 3,300 years, and that's from Matan Torah. That doesn't go back to Abraham. Go back to Abraham is 3,800 years old. Okay, so 3,200 years old. Okay, this is what it says in Exodus. Okay, it says, "Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the people. Indeed, all the earth is mine." God says, you got to be involved in keeping my stuff. Now, what does that mean, keeping my stuff? What does it mean, being faithful to my covenant? What does that mean? Being faithful to the covenant doesn't mean that you got to become Hasidic tomorrow. It doesn't mean that you're doing all of the commandments. Remember, Judaism wants to know one thing and one thing alone. What are you doing to grow? I don't care about what you're not doing. I don't care about the things you are doing. If you're doing exactly the same thing for 20 years and nothing has changed, you're doing something wrong. Right? It's not about what you're not doing or what you are doing. The question is, what are you working on doing? How are you developing yourselves? That's what it means to have a covenant with God. God demands excellence because He is excellent. Right? So how am I achieving my excellence? What am I doing to grow as a human being? How am I building myself up spiritually, intellectually, physically? What am I doing to grow myself right here, right now? What's the goal? Where am I going? If I'm doing the same thing over and over again, you're going backwards. You know why? Because the world, my friend, is always spinning forward. And if you're standing still, it will leave you behind. Okay? Deuteronomy. Let's see with Dvarim. You have affirmed this day that the Lord is your God, that you will walk in His ways, that you will observe His laws and commandments and rules, and that you will obey Him. And the Lord has affirmed this day that you are, as He promised you, His treasured people, who shall observe His commandments. Jeremiah, V'ahavta olam avticha. I loved you with an everlasting love, therefore I have drawn out kindness for you. Jeremiah, for I am with you to deliver you, declared the Lord. I will make an end of all the nations among which I have dispersed you, but I will not make an end of you. I will not leave you unpunished, but will chastise you in measure. Right? This is an answer to Mark Twain. Right? God, no matter what happens, I'll send you out, I'll scatter you across the planet, but you're going to survive. There is no group on planet Earth that has been exiled from their country twice. There's no ancient group of people alive today that have been exiled from their lands twice, have been scattered to the four corners of the globe, have been persecuted as much as we have, who are around today to have the chutzpah to go back to their country, reclaim it, revive a language that has not been spoken for 2,000 years, and build one of the most powerful armies on planet Earth. I saw this not too long ago. They were showing like the three most powerful economies on planet Earth. You know what they are? We measure the power of an economy based on the stocks that are traded in their stock exchanges. So you know what the number one is? United States of America. What's number two? China. You know what number three is? Israel. What? Israel is like the third strongest traded at least stocks in the world because everyone wants to get into their tech. Right? Israel has one of the top 5 armies on planet Earth. Does that make any sense? When there's only 9 million Israelis in the world. that Israel can compete with like Britain and France? Does that make any sense at all? Can you just think about what I just said? Does that make any sense? It makes no sense. Who built the country? Holocaust survivors. Emaciated, old, broken people. People coming from Arab lands with nothing, selling everything they had to come to the land of Israel, came with sticks and built a country with no resources, no water. It was swampland. People were dying from all kinds of diseases. And Israel is like a superpower, super economy. Does that make any sense? It makes no sense.
That's why there's the conspiracy theories.
Right, you're right. There is the conspiracies, but the problem is they're not reading the Jeremiah. They're not reading the promises. Right? Look at Jeremiah number 12 over there, right? 31, 34. Thus says the Lord, who established the sun light by day, the laws of the moon, the stars light by night, who stirs up the sea into the roaring waves, whose name is the Lord of hosts. If these laws should ever be annulled by me, declares the Lord, only then would the offspring of Israel cease to be a nation before me for all time. As long as there are Jews who are involved in this process of being Jewish and developing themselves, there will always be a Jewish people. Always. No matter, this. I had a rabbi who said, "You want to assimilate? Goodbye. It's okay. You don't want to be part of it? It's your loss." My grandchildren are going to be here to tell the story about the awesomeness of the powerful link of Jewish survival. Yours will disappear. No one will remember you and your offspring. You'll be forgotten. Goodbye. No one's forcing you to stay Jewish. No one's forcing you anymore. No one's coming to you. There's no nightmares anymore. Nothing. You do what you want to do. It's your choice. But if I was a betting person, and I want to make sure that I am able to impart my values, my beliefs, my history, my culture to the next generation, yeah, I'm going to wear a kippah. I'm going to be proud of it. I'm going to walk out there, and I'm going to be involved in being Jewish 100%. My children, they want to marry not Jewish. That's their choice. I can't stop them from doing it. The only thing I can do is hopefully create a family that shows them the beauty of our Jewish faith, the beauty of what it means to be a Jew and what we stand for as Jews. That's all I can do. It's their choice ultimately. It was my choice ultimately. Certainly, my parents thought I was making a bad choice, getting so religious and getting involved in my Judaism, but I think they look back at it now and think I made a really good choice when they look at my children and the things I'm involved in. Right? Because on some level, well, what do you mean? Like, we've bought into this notion that religiosity is a bad thing. That religion is tied into fanaticism, like it's opium for the masses. And you're right, it is opium for the masses when it's not Judaism. Because what Judaism ultimately wants at its core is it wants you to think, it wants you to push, it wants you to grow. That's all it wants. Whether or not, your skirt was this long, or you kept this kind of kosher, or on Shabbat you waited this amount of time versus that amount of time, God doesn't care. Because it's about where you're at. And the halachot, the laws that we're talking about, the law, halakha, comes from halicha, the pathway. What is the pathway that you are on? My grandparents were certainly did not keep the chumrot, the stringencies that I keep in my house, no question about it. Were they not religious? Were they not, spiritual? Well, my grandparents were already assimilated, but my great grandparents certainly were. My great grandmother covered her hair. She was super tznuah. My grandfather had a long beard. They all did. You're here because you had a great grandfather and a great grandma who was super religious, right? Do they keep the stringencies that I keep? Like, are they worrying about the lettuce the way we're worrying about our lettuce today? The answer is no, right? So what was the religion that they had back then? What were they keeping? What were they involved in? So it's hard for me to answer that question. I wish I could interview them. I would love to go back and go like 4 generations and just ask that question, like, what do you do religiously? And I would imagine that their religion was not measured based on their religious activities, their chitzoni, external things that they were involved in religiously. It was about their pnimiyut, their inner activities, of being humble and kind and learning and developing and growing, teaching and sharing and helping the people around you. You'll hear stories of your great-grandparents. Well, they helped this person, they helped that person, they brought people into their home, they hid them. They were doing that kind of stuff. We don't do that today. How many of you have hid someone from a government? Or helping someone with a situation? We're not doing that stuff. That's not our world anymore. So we have a different avoda. I really believe that the sacrifice of our generation comes from how we spend our money. 100%. Right? Yeshiva, expensive. Greatest form of birth control that has ever existed. Right? Who wants to have children? It's impossible. It's impossible. I can't get ahead of it. Every year, it's just more and more. It's nonstop. And I believe that that's where I sacrifice. Now, I'm not going on vacation. I'm not buying this. I'm not driving that. I'm not going there. And the sacrifice that we make today is in supporting this next generation in this way. They need that. They need that experience. I can't afford to send my kid to public school anymore. There was a time where you could do it in this country, but you can't do it anymore. The world has changed. Let's look at the Gemara. Talmud Bavli Yoma. If not for fear of the Holy One, blessed be He, how could a single nation survive among the nations? Right? The word fear is a poor translation. The word should be awe. Tosafot Chagiga says like this. It is said in the Midrash that three things testify about each other. Israel, Shabbat, and the Holy One, blessed be He. Israel and God testify about Shabbat, that it is a day of rest. Israel and Shabbat testify about God. He is one. God and Shabbat testify about Israel, that they are unique among the nations. Isn't that a beautiful Tosafot? There's this relationship between one and the other. Those people who have Shabbat experiences in their home are the ones that are going to give something over to the next generation. You lose Shabbat in your house, it's over. It's over. The way in which, the most powerfully profound way to ensure that your kids, your grandkids, have a deep connection to their Jewish faith is by creating a Shabbat experience for them that's meaningful and profound, where you're completely focused on giving them that experience. You don't have that at home, unlikely your kids are going to keep it. Go hand in hand. Right? Shabbat is that limiting factor. I'm thinking about Shabbat. I'm preparing for the Shabbat. I'm experiencing for Shabbat. I say this all the time. Make sure your kids are doing things for Shabbat. You have grandkids? What are they doing to prepare for Shabbat? What are they doing? Are they making chalot? Are they setting the table? Are they cutting the toilet paper? What are they doing? Are they turning off the lights? Are they setting the timers? What are they doing to create the Shabbat environment for themselves? If they're not doing anything, they're not experiencing Shabbat. The maid is doing everything, you got a problem. They got to do something for Shabbat. Let them go to the makolet, let them go to the store, let them buy something, let them make something, let them do something. Have some sort of responsibility for Shabbat so they can experience a Shabbat. I don't feel it, Rabbi. You know what? You know how come you don't feel like it all the time? Rabbi, I don't feel Shabbat. I'm like, what do you do for Shabbat? And the answer is always nothing. You can't connect to something that you're not invested in. That's just the way it is. If you're not invested in it, you're not feeling it, you're not connected to it, period. Rabbi Shlomo Malacho, the Sefer HaMefor, says, for the nation of Israel is God's throne of glory. Just as He is without any limit, so Israel is without any limit. And this is the meaning of the verse. You, O God, dwell forever. Your throne is from generation to generation. Just as God is eternal, so is Israel, who are His throne, are eternal. Who are His throne, are eternal. Deuteronomy, Devarim, you have affirmed this day that the Lord your God, that you will walk in His ways, and you observe His commandments and rules, that you will obey Him. And the Lord has affirmed this day that you are, as He promised, a treasured people. We saw this already, Leviticus. But if you do not obey me and do not observe all these commandments, you're going to be punished. Leviticus, and you I will scatter among the nations, and I will unsheath the sword against you. Your land shall become a desolation, and your cities in ruin. Is this true? The question that people often ask about this source over here, source number 18 in Vayikra, right? Why would Jews want to, page number 5, source number 18. And I will scatter among the nations, I'll scatter you among the nations, and I will unsheath the sword against you. Your land shall become a desolation, and your cities ruin. Why would you want to keep this? This is a threat. Right? Look at the next one. Yet even then, when they are in the land of their enemies. I will not reject them or spurn them so as to destroy them, annulling my covenant with them, for I am the Lord their God. Next source, I call heaven and earth on this day to witness against you that you shall soon perish from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You shall not long endure it, but you shall be utterly wiped out. The Lord will scatter you among the people, and only a scant few of you shall be left among the nations to which the Lord will drive you. Heavy. Number 21, the Discovery Source Book. The Jewish nation is ancient. However, in relation to the length of its days, its numbers are few. Persecution, servitude, forced conversion, assimilation, all did their part to curb its growth. The total number of Jews never exceeded 16 million. That means there have never been more than 16 million Jews ever on planet Earth.
But how do they know that they can't?
We go back through records.
People,
Population
some
record.
Half, some don't even know they're Jewish.
So, but remember that the idea, half Jews, this and that, is a more modern idea. Like that would never happen before. There is a number I saw that if you take all the Jews who converted out of Judaism, that the mother married a Christian and raised their kids Christian, they don't know they're Jewish. There should be about 50 million halachic Jews on planet Earth that don't know that they're Jewish. That's the number that you want. But as far as Jews practicing Judaism, the number's been around 16 million for the last 2,000 years. Whenever we reach a time in history where we hit 16 million, something happens, back down. Right now we're at like 15.6 million. Yeah. That's it.
That's crazy.
That's it.
So the peak was
I know.
to 60 million. Was when?
16 million was before World War II. And then the Holocaust came and brought us down to 10 million, 10, 11 million. The crazy thing is that the number should be much greater. Because you're talking about almost like 80 years ago, there's 2 generations, there should have some kind of growth. There's not much growth has happened.
It's assimilation.
And that's what assimilation is, and it's going to get worse. Meaning in America, in one generation, will move from 5 million Jews to about 2 million Jews. How many empty synagogues will be around the country? How many empty Ys and Jewish camps will be something else? That today, most kids will tell you, I don't see the value of why I need to marry someone Jewish. Yeah, I agree with you. That's where we're headed right now, right? We need a miracle, but that's the reality. But I'm saying there is already a miracle here. The fact that we're having the conversation is miraculous. And then there's another layer to this, that you've survived and you're here because of the merits of your grandparents and great-grandparents. I say this all the time. If you don't have a great-grandparent that was Orthodox, the chances of you still identifying of it being a Jew is less than 2%. That's statistically true, by the way. 2%. That's it. If you're Reformed, it's 2%. If you're conservative, it's 6% within 4 generations. Okay? You're here because you had Orthodox great-grandparents. And I don't like that term Orthodox, you're observant great-grandparents. Okay? They're observing. So when the Common Era began, Jews comprised of 10% of the Roman Empire. By comparison to the multiplication in China, one can imagine how many Jews should have been around. So around the same time in the second Temple era, okay, there were about 1 million Jews living in the world. Okay, at the same time in China, you had about 1 million Chinese. How many Jews should there be on planet Earth if we were not involved in our expansionists and our scattering and exiling? There should be about 1 billion Jews living in the world today. If we were stuck on an island like the Chinese, there should be about 1 billion Jews today on planet Earth. But we only have 15 million.
You're saying that it's mostly because of persecution?
I'm saying it's a combination of all sorts of things.
It's a lot of rejection.
Yes, it's hard. I'm not saying being Jewish is easy. It's a responsibility. And anyone here the firstborn child? Right? So the firstborn children always feel a sense of responsibility that the other kids don't have, to the parents, to the family, and so on and so forth. It's just part of it. Like being Jewish is a responsibility. It's not just a nationality. I'm Jewish. No, it's a responsibility. What does that mean? It means getting up. It means working hard. It means being better. It means trying to do things. It means helping the world around you. It's a responsibility. Being Jewish is not easy, no question about it. Keeping Shabbat in a world where no one keeps Shabbat is very hard. right? When all you're looking at is Instagram, pictures of people photoshopping themselves and having fun on beaches and cruises and eating whatever they want, going whatever they want. It's hard. I get it. I'm not living in a I'm not living in a cave. I get it. I get the challenge. I understand it. But I also understand that the reason why, I also know that our great-grandparents understood it also. Why didn't they walk away? Why was it so easy for them to kind of maintain their faith? And the reason for that is because when they looked around, even with all of the privileges that all the people around them had, they understood one thing more than we do. That living a Jewish lifestyle gave them more meaning than living any other kind of lifestyle that was around available back then. Didn't matter. Yeah.
Do you feel that there's some kind of a message of that doesn't matter how many people there are on the planet? Like that. You wonder like there's a message in the like more about the universe and galaxies, like this is is that really supposed to give us a message that don't even be concerned of how much the population is? Just look at your people.
Yeah. There is something like that. There's a lot of pushback I've heard from a lot of donors that say, why are we spending all this money on outreach? Like, why are you trying to do kiruv? Why are you doing outreach? Like, forget that. It's a waste of money. Just give money to the Orthodox community. Support the people that are learning in yeshiva because they're the future. And you're wasting every other dollar anywhere else is a waste of Jewish dollars. And my response back is that you're wrong, because of that attitude, I wouldn't be here doing the things that I do. And that every single Jew counts, no matter what they're doing. And therefore, we have a responsibility, at the very least, to try to create an environment where we're opening up our homes to them, and so on and so forth. A few months ago, I had a student whose mother, she became observant, parents are not observant. The mom came for Shabbat because she wanted to see the grandkids. And she was at the table, and it was super sensitive. Why did my daughter reject my ways? I wanted her to have everything. I wanted her to have, this and that, and now she covers her hair. Look at her. She's gorgeous. You know what I'm saying? She's a beautiful girl, brilliant, and she doesn't feel like she's missing anything. But from her mom's perspective, like, you can't eat in my house anymore. So I'm not going to eat in your house. So she came to my house instead. That's why they came to my house. It's like craziness. Like, find pride in, but these are young kids today that are dealing with parents who are anti any kind of observance. Any kind of observance.
They're religious, they're anti. Like, they keep Shabbat, they're anti.
The parents are not keeping Shabbat, but
They keep Shabbat, like,
the parents are not. These are parents who are not keeping anything, and the kids are, and the parents are like, I'm not going to your house ever unless you eat pork with me. Like that kind of stuff. It happens. All right, let's keep going. So where were we? Discovery Source Book, Talmud Sanhedrin. Talmud and Rabbi Yeshua told them that if you do not repent, you will not be redeemed. Rather, God brings upon them a king whose decrees are as harsh as those as Haman, and the people of Israel repent and they return to the right path. Like, we've seen this throughout history. Like, we get a crazy Ahmadinejad coming out, and all of a sudden Jews start becoming more observant. This is a way that God interacts with society. Why does God choose certain leaders to lead? We know that leaders throughout history have no free will. Are you guys aware of this? There's a Jewish principle that leaders have no bechirat chofshi, they have no free will. That everything that leaders do, they're just pawns, their strings are being pulled. Why certain leaders are there? They're all there to help the Jews move into whatever direction they need to go into. Talmud Bavli, Megillah, the removal of the ring of Achashverosh's signet ring, which was given to Haman in order to seal the decree against the Jews, was greater than 48 prophets and 7 prophetesses that prophesied for Israel. None of them could induce Israel to repent, yet the removal of the ring did. More Jews became religious than any outreach organization before, because that one ring that we're going to kill every single Jew on this day, that forced the Jews to wake up. When we realize that there's something bigger, like, why are we always being singled out? Why are we always at the center of the controversy? It's obvious that there's something else happening here. There's something bigger than what men and women are choosing to do. Ezekiel, as I live, says the Lord God, I will not be inquired of by you, but what enters your mind shall not come about. What you say, let us be like the nations, like the families of the lands, to serve wood and stone. As I live, says the Lord God, surely with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm and with poured something there. I don't know what it ends over there, but basically I'll take my vengeance. Like, there's no way that, you want to assimilate. He's talking about assimilation here. Ezekiel's talking about assimilation then. 2,200 years ago. Assimilation happening, right? He's saying that's not going to happen. And if you try to assimilate, don't worry about it. I'm going to create boundaries, borders that prevent you from assimilating. Anne Frank, Diary of a Young Girl, right? She wrote this on April 11th, 1944. Who made us Jews different from all other people? Who has allowed us to suffer so terribly up until now? Is it God who has made us as we are? But it will be God too who will raise us up again. Who knows? It might even be our religion from which the world and the people learn good. And for that reason, and only that reason, do we suffer. We can never become just Netherlanders or just English or representatives of any country for that matter. We will always remain Jews. How brilliant is that from a young little girl? That's the answer. That no matter, so where's page 7? Here we go. No, this is 3 of 7, 6 of 7. Do you guys have another page there? Why am I missing something? Do you have a page 7? Yeah, I'm missing it. Thank you, Maurice. Okay, last two sources. Let's finish up the idea with the questions. But okay, this is again Dvarim, back into Vayadatem, and bear in mind that God your Lord disciplines you just as a man disciplines his son. Okay, God isn't just watching your lives happen. He's interacting with you in your lives. The challenge you faced this morning, not an accident. That's what you needed, my friends, to grow. Deuteronomy. Then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and take you back in love. He will bring you together again from all the peoples where the Lord your God has scattered you. Even if your outcasts are at the ends of the world, from there the Lord your God will gather you. From there he will fetch you. The Lord your God will bring you to the land that their fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he will make you more prosperous and more numerous than your fathers. So, which is kind of like a weird thing to say. Like, we're seeing like parts of this come true today. Like the fact that Jews from all four corners of the globe have moved to Israel. This last year, there's a 600% increase in Aliyah in the land of Israel. And here we are having the conversation, not in Israel. There's a 600% increase in the land of Israel for Aliyah last year. I believe the numbers are going to keep growing as anti-Semitism in Europe and around the globe continues to grow. Once it happens here, we're out of here. Who's going to leave, by the way? Which Jews are going to go first, Israel? The Orthodox are going to go first. The other ones are not going to go. They're the last to go. Right? They're not going to want to go.
Who's going to fight it, though?
At some point, you have to let God. We do our part. We do our hishtadlut. We do our part. We try to do what we can do. There's only so many Chabad houses we can open. There's only so many campus rabbis you can have. There's only so many programs you can build. At some point, the people, they need to do it on their own. I did this math a long time ago. I don't know what the numbers are today, but there's something like 80,000 Jews living in Manhattan between the ages of 20 and 30. 80,000. Right? Our program should be exploding. I'm happy getting 100, 120 people showing up. But think about it. What is that relative to the number of Jews in that demographic living in New York City? It's a drop. It's less than 1%. It's crazy.
It reflects the Jews in the country as well.
I understand that. I'm saying, but at the very least, New York City, right? We should be packed, right? I should be like Robin. We need a much bigger space, right? I can't fit in here, but thank God we have what we have. We do what we do, but it's still minuscule, and it's because we live in a time in history where Jews are so disconnected, they're so distracted, they're so far removed, it's hard. You're going to need a miracle, you need a prophet to bring it all together. So what is the secret of Jewish survival? That's the only secret. It doesn't make any sense because based on logic, natural processes of nations, we shouldn't be here having the conversation. There's a promise in the Torah that says that you will be an Or L'Goyim, a light unto the nation, you'll be an everlasting nation. I will bring you back. There are 16 prophecies that are mentioned in Tanakh. 13 have come true. There are 3 that are left. Okay, if you want, we'll do a whole other class one day on prophecies and what they were. There's 3 that are left. The last three that are left is that the Jewish people will return to the land of Israel. Okay? That the Jews that will come from the four corners of the globe to return to the land of Israel. That's happening. We're living that right now. We're seeing that happen right now. If you were alive in 1920, and no matter which countries your families came from, and I told you that the Jewish people are going to reclaim Israel and build the most powerful army and have one of the most powerful economies in the world, you'd laugh at me. You're like, are you crazy? What are you, nuts? What are you talking about? We're about to go into World War II right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way it's happening. There's no way Jews are anything. Imagine a Jew in the beginning of World War II in the forest telling them there's going to be a time where Jews are going to have an army and they're going to build a massive city called Tel Aviv and Yerushalayim and all these. They're going to have like one of the most advanced societies in the world. Okay? And we're reading this pasuk that talks about how the Jews are going to come back. What would they say to you? They're like, it's over, man. It's over. Pipe dream.
You lost 6 million and you're coming back.
Exactly. You lost 6 million and you're coming back. Jews were dropping their kippot off at the door. It's over. It's over. But this is the promise 3,300 years ago that you're going to come back and reclaim your land, and the Jews from the four corners of the globe are going to come. We're living that beginning of that prophecy come true. The next, is the rebuilding of the temple. And last is the resurrection of the dead. Now, for me, those two things, so there's two ways of understanding the third temple. Third temple can be us finally taking full control, the world's giving us full control over Jerusalem, and because we can't take it by force. We can't take Jerusalem by force. We can't build the temple by force. Even though right now we have the military capability of doing it, we can't do it l'halacha, it's asur. You have to build the temple through peaceful means. That means the world is going to have to say, Jews, we get it. Here's Jerusalem. We want you to have it. Start rebuilding the temple. That's a possibility for me. Third possibility is that it's just messianic and that there's something crazy that happens, that a temple appears from whatever it is, and there's that. However you want to understand, the future unfolding. And lastly, the resurrection of the dead is becoming less and less of a mystical thing. I mean, we're talking about bringing back the woolly mammoth. We have the technology today to take people's DNA and bring them back. Right? Resurrection doesn't sound like a crazy. There are companies that are around today that are talking about the Human Longevity Project, talking about extending your lives until 180, 250. That you have the power of extending your lives for much longer than ever before. As a matter of fact, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that before Mashiach comes, one of the simanim is that when someone dies at 100, we're going to say, he died at a young age.
Was he supposed to be at 120?
No, at 180, it's changing. It's changing. But that's where we're at. We're at a place where we're watching Jews come back to the land of Israel, having conversations about building the temple. The biggest issues in Israel right now, the Temple Mount, like the Palestinians feeling that we're taking over the temple. That's the issue, primary issue that's in Jerusalem right now, right? Who controls Jerusalem? It's like we're living the story. We're hearing it unfold. And the rest of it for me, it's okay. Go back. We're going to be exiled. We're going to come back. We're going to build the second temple. All those things have come and true. And we're here telling the story. My friends, you are a mystery. You cannot be understood without understanding there's a God who made a promise that you and I will be here to have this conversation. That's the only way to explain your survival, because by natural means, there should be no Jews living today on planet Earth.
The 16 prophecies, the time frame of the first 13, does it seem like it's accelerating now?
I don't know. It's hard. Those prophecies were foretold in the Torah. So we're talking about 3,300 years of prophecies that we saw unfold.
I don't know those prophecies.
We'll go through them. We'll definitely go through them. I want to end with this. The Hanukkah is a story about a miracle, the last Jewish miracle, right? That we haven't recorded. There's no other miracle after that. The miracles we talk about in the Torah. Well, we're the last miracle. But as far as looking at a miracle, that was the last miracle we have written in our text. There's no other miracle after that. It's over. It's funny because you have Moses who sees the burning bush, a flame that doesn't go out, and you have a Hanukkah, a flame that doesn't go out in a time of darkness. We're that flame today. We're the last flame. We're the last embers of the miracle of the Torah, of a God that has created a world with meaning and purpose. We're the ones telling the story. There's going to be two kinds of people. The people that are going to be there to make sure that the stories continue to be told, and there's going to be the people that are forgotten. You decide which camp you want to be in. That's what Hanukkah is about. Hanukkah is about picking sides. You want to be a Hellenist, or do you want to be part of the Maccabees? You want to be a Jew and fight to tell the story. Hanukkah Sameach, everybody. We should only live